What would have been a somber moment of unity became something else. The funeral of Garrison Brown could have been a glimpse of healing a broken family momentarily mending itself. For a fleeting moment, it seemed hope. But that illusion was shattered as soon as it began. What came next wasn't sorrow, wasn't closure, it was pandemonium, and it all went down in the latest Sister Wives tell-all. Let's get into this emotional maelstrom a little bit more after this. Welcome to your platform of unvarnished truth, honest discussion, and everything the cameras attempted to edit out. If you haven't already, tap that subscribe button and hit the bell because what we're getting into here is so much more than reality TV. This isn't just a show anymore. It's a window into emotional manipulation, unchecked behavior, and a family unraveling before our eyes. The tension was already sky high, as tell-all episodes usually are, but this time, it crossed a line. The spotlight fell on Sukanya Krishnan, the even-keeled journalist, charged with steering this emotional minefield. But rather than respond to her thoughtful questions, Kody Brown attacked. He didn't merely deflect blame, he raged, he screamed, he belittled, he distorted her statements. On national television, any other panelist would have been removed from set, but not Kody. For the second time, TLC allowed it to occur. So ask yourself why. This is no longer just about a fractured marriage or a man clinging to past glories. It's about power, it's about ego, and most disturbingly, it's about how one man's spiral is being enabled in front of millions. Because this isn't new. We've seen it coming. Let's rewind. For years, Kody Brown has posed as the glue that keeps a plural family intact: 4 wives, close to 20 children, and a vision based on faith, patience, and spiritual mission. That's the narrative we bought. But behind that veneer was another thing entirely. Let's unveil the layers. In the first few seasons, Kody parroted the slogan, "I treat all my wives equally." He appeared, alternated homes, made family decisions. On paper, balanced. Behind the scenes, cracks were beginning. Robyn was receiving more of his attention. Christine's concerns were ignored. Janelle ended up doing parenting on her own too often. And Meri, she became lost in isolation. The favoritism was there from the start, subtle at first, but real. And then arrived the crisis point. Christine didn't leave Kody quietly. She deconstructed the myth, quietly, honestly, with dignity, not revenge. And in sharing her own story, she broke the myth of equality Kody had held onto for so long. That was the pivot point. Suddenly, he wasn't the keeper of the story anymore, and you could see it: his terror, his desire to take control back. His words changed. Bye-bye, equal love discourse. Hello, spin. I just have a deeper connection with Robyn. It turned into a game of blame. Christine got difficult. The breakdown was not his fault. He played the victim not because he wanted to believe it, but because it was the last card he had up his sleeve. But here's the reality. All of this wouldn't have come to light if the women hadn't stopped shielding him. Christine shattered the facade. Janelle supported her. Even Meri, devoted to the end, eventually pierced the act. And that's the secret. When they broke away from the script, Kody's character disintegrated. He didn't own up because he matured. He owned up because he lost his grip. The fantasy is shattered now. And what remains a man, no longer at the head of a family, but grasping to an ideal of himself that never existed, and at the center of it all? Robyn, the face of favoritism, the wedge that widened every fissure in the foundation. Her presence didn't form the chasm, but it made the cracks irrepressible. This is not a story about plural marriage. It's a story about power, loyalty, and what happens when one ego becomes greater than everyone else's humanity. And the network? Still rolling the cameras, still allowing it to happen. So I'd like to hear your opinion. Was this inevitable? Always going to break like this? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Let's discuss what actually went down. Beyond the promos, beyond the cuts, because this is no longer just a reality show, it's a reckoning. Let's face it, the favoritism wasn't subtle. It was just buried beneath years of denial and carefully crafted words. Even when Kody claimed he treated all his wives the same, the truth was obvious to anyone with eyes open. And now, he's not even going through the motions anymore. He's publicly professing his love for Robyn not just as a preference, but as something divinely appointed. And that makes all the difference. Let that sit. Not special, not unique, divine. What does that reveal about the women who sacrificed decades of their lives to this man? Robyn has had more of Kody's time, more of his energy, more of his protection for years. When the family was figuring out COVID protocols, Kody essentially relocated to Robyn's house, citing safety, but safety resembled favoritism. Christine and Janelle were given strict guidelines and ultimatums. Robyn? She didn't need to make an adjustment. The double standard couldn't have been more evident, and on television, the disparity was even more dramatic. With Christine and Janelle, Kody was cold, dismissive, quick to anger. Discussions were turned into fights. Love was worn as obligation. But with Robyn, he softened. He listened. He apologized. He was present emotionally. He gave her the version of himself others barely got. And now that it's cameras and editors and television ratings at stake, he's rewriting history not only by selecting Robyn, but by saying it was God's plan all along. So what were the other marriages? Practice sessions? Flubs. The enormity of that assertion is crushing, because within the religion they all once believed, plural marriage wasn't merely a way of life, it was a calling, a religious calling, a divine path set by something greater than themselves. To now declare only one of those marriages was divine doesn't merely belittle the others, it obliterates them. It redescribes Meri, Christine, and Janelle as placeholders, as women who invested years' lifetimes of loyalty, sacrifice, and love in something that Kody now tells them was never, ever meant to be. Christine raised his children. She kept his household intact when no one else would. And now she's being told in so many words that it was never sacred, that she was never the one. This is not spiritual introspection. This is betrayal wrapped in religious rhetoric. And it hurts to watch. And then the tell-all. It was meant to be a time of candor, a moment of shared breath after the tempest, an opportunity to look back on what could very well be the saddest season Sister Wives has ever had. But rather than healing, we were given a spectacle. Kody didn't just unravel, he exploded. And the object of his anger? The serene, professional, and much admired host, Sukanya Krishnan. Suki, as enthusiasts call her, didn't instigate. She didn't lash out. She merely asked a question, a reasonable, straightforward question, regarding Kody's heavenly assertion and how it aligns with all he once said about balanced love and spiritual parity. That's her job. That's what the audience was curious about. But Kody didn't respond. He blew up. The tone changed in a heartbeat. His voice became more pointed, louder. His body leaned forward. Anger emanated from him, not just in words, but in body language. His hands waved wildly, his eyes scrunched up. He spoke over her. He blew her off completely. What was supposed to be a respectful conversation turned into a one-sided rant. And Suki? She stayed calm with class, but the pain was etched on her face. Occasionally, she looked off camera, as though asking the unheard question, is anybody going to intervene? But nobody did. She sat there, expressionless and professional, as Kody Brown, a man who used to insist he was the spiritual anchor of his family, ripped into her for doing her job. And here's the most disturbing part. This isn't new. Christine's family has talked previously about how Kody behaves when he feels trapped. He screams, he bullies, he overwhelms. Witnessing him rail against Suki was like witnessing that pattern play out in real time. This was not a discussion. It was a demonstration of emotional dominance, and TLC allowed it to be broadcast, raw, without interruption. So we're left to wonder, how much more do we have to witness before someone says enough? Let's take a step back here and be real. Picture this not occurring on the set of a reality show. Picture it occurring in a reputable newsroom. Picture a male guest yelling over a female reporter on NBC or CBS, having to be yelled over, being finger pointed at, becoming aggressively defensive because he didn't like the question. You can't, because it wouldn't be permitted. HR would intervene. There would be words, ramifications, apologies, and likely a public outcry. But on Sister Wives, business as usual. That's the issue. This isn't merely about Kody Brown having an outburst. This is about workplace aggression, aired on national television, and nobody intervened. Nobody stood up for Suki. She's not merely a host. She's a professional journalist, hired by TLC to host a reunion special work that demands emotional clarity, restraint, and precision. She did the job. She remained on script. She didn't attack. She didn't escalate. She posed a fair, relevant question. And yet, she got steamrolled by a man who simply didn't like being held accountable. And TLC, they allowed it to happen. They let the cameras keep rolling because drama sells. Huh? But here's the thing. At what cost? Who's fighting for Suki? Who's protecting the people they employ when the cameras aren't rolling? She did her job. She questioned something Kody said himself, and for that, she got yelled at, loudly, in public, and without a single step in from the same network that hired her to sit in that chair. That's not just cringeworthy TV, that's precedent threatening. Because if Kody Brown can blow up on a host and receive no resistance, if he can make a hostile atmosphere and still get to leave with extra airtime, what does this tell us? That tantrums pay, that bullying works, that silence is rewarded more than telling the truth. And this is not a one-time incident. That's why it's even more appalling. This is a pattern. Kody Brown has a long history of reacting with hostility when women don't fall in line, when they stop protecting his ego, when they ask hard questions or refuse to co-sign his version of events. And if we've been paying attention, we've seen this before, not just with his wives, but with the women who've tried to hold him accountable on camera. Remember Tamron Hall? Natalie Morales respected, seasoned journalists who once sat across from Kody in these same tell-alls, doing exactly what Suki did, asking fair, thoughtful questions rooted in truth. And what happened? They vanished, replaced, silently rotated out with no explanation. And we're supposed to believe that was just creative direction? Please, let's not insult our intelligence. The pattern is too obvious to ignore. Women show up. They do their work with professionalism and composure, and if they push back against Kody's version of reality, they're gone, gently but firmly set aside as Kody stays on. And here we are once more, observing Suki walking the same tightrope, asking questions directly from TLC's own playbook, and yet still being verbally assaulted for doing exactly what she was brought in to do. And the most frightening aspect? She most likely won't be returning next season, not because she messed up, not because she crossed a line, but because she did too good of a job, because she didn't play nice while Kody redefined history, because she didn't turn away while he framed himself as the victim. This is how control works in families, in media, in institutions. You shut down dissent by punishing the dissenters, and TLC, unwittingly or not, is complicit in that cycle. They're rewarding the aggression because each blow-up becomes viral material. Each furious outburst is a ratings booster. As long as the soap opera continues to flow, the show remains viable. But let's be real. The emotional toll is no longer borne by the wives only. It's borne by the women imported to broker the damage. These hosts, Tamron, Natalie, Suki, arrive with elegance, create space for some of the most brutal moments this family has ever endured, and attempt to bring order to a show founded on chaos. They're in the blast radius and are supposed to remain calm, composed, neutral, and what do they receive in return? Disrespect, dismissal, disappearance. Consider what Christine went through to walk away, the years Janelle spent maintaining peace, the unspoken pain Meri carried, the isolation and abandonment, and now Suki is in that same position, soaking up the repercussions of Kody's emotional drama, solely because he cannot tolerate being the target of inquiry without bringing someone else down with him. The pattern continues every single time she does it. A woman is speaking. Kody bristles. She's been labeled difficult, confrontational, too emotional, and then she's vanished. This isn't merely a family falling apart. This is a reality show founded on the erasure of women who refuse to play along. And when you take a step back and consider the larger picture, how TLC presents this type of rage, this type of dysfunction, this amount of emotional instability as entertainment, you can't help but feel it in your chest, that constriction, that unease, that feeling something is fundamentally amiss here. At what point does chronicling a meltdown become taking advantage of it? And how many women must be screamed down, pushed aside, or removed before someone in power utters, "Enough"? Because this isn't reality television, this is a mirror. And what it's reflecting back? Something we all need to come to terms with. This is not a soap opera, it's a tale of power, of a man who has manipulated and constructed the narrative in his own house and in front of the country for over 10 years, and of a network that still defends him, not because he's correct, but because he's lucrative. But we must ask, at what expense? We've watched Kody twist facts. We've watched him explode in anger. We've seen him disrespect his wives, gaslight his family, shout down professional hosts, and still be handed the spotlight like nothing happened, all while the cameras keep rolling because it makes good TV. That volatility? It's not just tolerated, it's branded now. Kody storms off, Kody screams, Kody rewrites reality, and it's sold like a product, just part of the show. But here's the truth: if you or I behaved that way on the job, we'd be disciplined, fired, declared a liability, not renewed for another season. A lot of you have been watching this show for years. Perhaps you saw your own journey reflected in Christine's bravery. Perhaps you recognized Meri's isolation. Perhaps Janelle's silent breaking point struck a little too near home. And now perhaps, just perhaps, you're reading Suki and asking yourself, when is she going to say, "I'm done"? Because how many times can a woman do her job with grace and professionalism only to be yelled down and calmly usurped? So I want to hear from you. Do you see Suki returning next season? Or will this be the last time we get to see her sit across Kody Brown? Let your thoughts in the comments below. I'm reading them all. And if you've read that far, really thank you. That means you're interested in truth, not merely tabloid drama. You're interested in accountability, not merely algorithms. So go ahead and like the video, leave your comment, and subscribe. Because this conversation, it's not done. I'm Mara, and I'll be right here with you explaining it all, step by step.